Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump have warned of a disturbing trend: the shrinking middle class in America. As the economy becomes more unequal, millions of Americans are struggling to make ends meet. With the effects of the pandemic still being felt, the outlook for the middle class is uncertain and many are afraid of what their future holds. They warn that if you don't take action soon, you could be left behind. What will happen to the American dream if the middle class continues to shrink? How will the gap between the rich and the poor continue to widen? Will the middle class be able to recover, or is it doomed to decline? Tune in to find out. In this video, The Shrinking Middle Class, from the best-selling book, Why We Want You to Be Rich, Two Men, One Message, by the great authors Robert Kiyosaki and US President Donald Trump. Get ready to expand your mind, learn valuable lessons, and gain a deeper understanding of the principles that drive successful individuals. You'll not only gain knowledge, but also practical guidance to apply in your own life. Unleash your full potential with a Rich Mind channel, where you'll discover valuable insights and knowledge from renowned authors and speakers from around the world. Whether you're looking to improve your professional skills, achieve success, or build wealth, this channel is dedicated to providing you with the tools and resources you need to reach your goals. Join us on our journey to success and subscribe today. Let's learn and grow together. The Shrinking Middle Class, Robert's View. Raising your financial IQ. There are many different definitions of intelligence, but one of the more practical ones I learned from my rich dad is that intelligence is the ability to solve problems. This definition recognizes that intelligence is not limited to academic knowledge or skills, but rather that it can be applied to any situation where problem solving is necessary. In school, for example, if you can solve math problems, you are considered intelligent. Out of school, if you can fix a car, you are deemed to have automotive intelligence. When it comes to money, the bigger financial problems you can solve, the higher your financial intelligence. Today, our world faces some serious financial problems, many of which are interrelated and cause one another. To solve these problems, we need people with financial intelligence who can devise creative solutions and strategies to address the underlying issues. Financial intelligence is not only useful for individuals, but also for businesses, governments, and other organizations, as it allows for more informed decisions that can help to improve economic stability and growth. Some of the more pressing ones are: 1. Value of the dollar falling. 2. National debt increasing. 3. Baby boomers starting to retire. 4. Oil prices rising. 5. Gap increasing between the rich and everyone else. 6. Wages decreasing. 7. Jobs being exported. 8. Social Security and Medicare going bankrupt. 9. Savings being wiped out. 10. Lack of financial education being taught. The pressing questions are: 1. What can we do? 2. What are the solutions to these problems? 3. Is our financial IQ high enough to solve these problems? 4. How do we avoid becoming victims of these problems? 5. How do we protect our families from falling victim to these problems? Many of today's financial struggles stem from our failure to act when issues first arose, instead of teaching people to rely solely on government assistance for their personal needs. This pattern has resulted in a lack of financial awareness and a reluctance to confront the fact that many of these programs, such as Social Security and Medicare, are facing an uncertain future if we do not make meaningful changes. While it is important to provide assistance to those who are unable to care for themselves, the majority of us are capable of taking care of ourselves if we are properly educated and trained. Unfortunately, this education and training is not always provided, leaving many people ill-equipped to handle their own finances and placing the burden of providing for them on the government. This is why it is so important to ensure that people are provided with the necessary tools to be financially literate, so that they can make sound decisions and take responsibility for their own well-being. It is only through education and training that we can ensure that citizens have the ability to manage their finances responsibly and responsibly contribute to the well-being of society as a whole. Now I can hear some of you readers saying, we need to take care of those who cannot care for themselves. And I agree with that. We, as a civilized society, should take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. However, most of us can take care of ourselves if we have and if we have been trained to. It's time to raise your financial IQ. Changing demographic. Because of the low financial IQ solutions we used in the past, today our demographic population is changing from. The diagram illustrates the trend of growing wealth inequality in many countries. It shows that the wealthy are accumulating more and more wealth, while the middle and lower classes are becoming increasingly impoverished. This is largely due to the fact that the wealthy are able to access more resources and opportunities, allowing them to accumulate more wealth. This, in turn, leads to an even greater gap between the wealthy and the rest of society, creating a two-class system in which the wealthy become even wealthier, and the rest of society is left behind. This pattern is not unique to the United States, and can be seen in many other countries around the world. Unfortunately, this growing wealth inequality has serious implications for society, as it can lead to social unrest and a decrease in overall well-being. Many world economies are becoming two-class societies, the rich and the poor, classes or masses. The April 16, 2006, Sunday edition of the New York Times ran a front-page article with the headline, "Revival in Japan Brings Widening of Economic Gap," is an article written by Norimitsu Onishi and published in the New York Times on April 16, 2006. The article discusses the widening of the economic gap in Japan due to the revival of the economy. It talks about how the gap between the wealthy and the poor has widened since the revival, with the wealthy benefiting more than the poor. Additionally, the article discusses how this gap has implications on social functions and increasing inequality. The second paragraph of the article states, "Today, in a country whose view of itself was once captured in the slogan, 100 million, all middle-class society," catchphrases harshly sort people into winners and losers, and describe Japan as a society of widening disparities. In other words, the middle class being wiped out. Today in Japan, you are either rich or poor, a financial winner or a financial loser. The same thing is happening in America and in many European countries. Additionally, advances in technology and automation have also played a role in the erosion of the middle class, as many middle-class jobs have been replaced by machines and software. As a result, more people are pushed into poverty or rely on low-paying jobs to make ends meet, leading to an increasingly polarized economic landscape. The price of a low financial IQ. In my conversations with Donald Trump, we agreed that relying on outdated financial methods is not an effective way to solve the complex issues of today. We both recognize that providing more entitlements and handouts to individuals without also educating them and helping them become financially independent will only lead to an increase in financial problems for the nation. Instead, we agreed that the best approach is to educate people, create educational games and other products, and empower them to handle their own financial needs. This is the only way to ensure that the middle class will continue to exist and that individuals will be capable of dealing with their own financial problems. As the first wave of baby boomers approach retirement, we must strive to create a nation of educated and financially independent individuals who are equipped to manage their own money and make their own decisions. There are many definitions for intelligence. One of the more practical ones I learned from my rich dad is, intelligence is the ability to solve problems. Robert Kiyosaki. This generation of baby boomers, numbering 75 million, have made significant contributions to Social Security and Medicare, yet the money they put in has been lost to a Ponzi scheme. Sadly, many of them are unaware of what a Ponzi scheme is due to the lack of financial literacy education in schools. Despite this, these baby boomers still deserve to be paid for the contributions that they have made. If each of the 75 million baby boomers were to receive $1,000 per month in Social Security and Medicare payments, it would add up to a staggering $75 billion per month, which is the equivalent of one Hurricane Katrina or one Iraq war every month. Fortunately, there is still time for those affected by this to prepare for the financial storms that are coming, but not much. In Sunday school, I was taught, give a person a fish and you feed him for a day. And that is what we as a nation have been doing. This is the entitlement mentality of Social Security and Medicare. Teach a person to fish and you feed him for life. This is what Donald and I have been doing. We want people to learn to be rich and teach others to be rich. In Teach to Be Rich, a product I created to help individuals learn how to become financially independent, I discuss the distinction between those who give away their knowledge and those who sell it. Many stockbrokers, real estate brokers, financial planners, bankers, and insurance agents are in the business of selling, rather than teaching or giving. Although most of these professionals are not necessarily selfish, the term selfish is used here to emphasize the importance of being aware of the differences between those who provide knowledge and those who merely sell it. It is essential to understand that there is a stark difference between those who are in it for personal gain and those who are genuinely invested in helping others become financially independent. There are those who are driven by the desire to make a quick buck, and those who are motivated by the satisfaction of seeing others succeed. The former will likely make grand promises, whereas the latter are more likely to take a step-by-step approach and provide tangible advice. It is important to do your research and make sure that whoever you seek advice from is a reliable source. Look for someone who is experienced, knowledgeable, and has a track record of successful results. Additionally, make sure to read reviews and ask around to get a sense of the person's reputation. Ultimately, it is up to you to discern whether someone is genuinely invested in teaching you or is just looking to make a sale. Donald and I are concerned that most people do not choose to learn to manage their own money or learn to invest their own money. Instead of learn, they simply turn their money over to experts and then hope and pray their experts are truly experts. In Donald's book, How to Get Rich, he has this to say about financial advisors. People who sell fish, the chapter heading says it all. Be your own financial advisor. The chapter begins with, many people go out and hire financial advisors, but I have also seen a lot of these advisors destroy people. Athletes, in particular, make a great deal of money at a very young age. Too often, some manager squanders the athlete's fortune, and they wind up in their 30s with nothing left but their past glory, and are forced to get jobs just to survive. We want to teach you to fish. Donald Trump and I do not sell fish. We do not sell investment advice or tell people what to invest in. We are teachers. We want you to learn how to become rich, invest your own money, and become your own financial expert. We want to teach you to fish for yourself. Rich Dad's Secret. As I mentioned before, many rich people are secretive. Donald Trump is a notable exception to the rule of secrecy among the wealthy. He is very open about his wealth and is not afraid to share his financial secrets. This is quite remarkable, because many wealthy people prefer to remain anonymous and keep their wealth and financial strategies a closely guarded secret. One of the reasons why Donald Trump is so willing to share his financial knowledge is that he is a great believer in the power of education. He has said on many occasions that knowledge is power, and he is passionate about teaching others how to become successful and achieve financial freedom. He often holds seminars and workshops to impart his wisdom, and his books, such as The Art of the Deal, have become classics in the field of personal finance. Donald Trump is a great example of how the wealthy are not all secretive and reclusive. He is open to sharing his financial secrets and is passionate about education and teaching others how to become successful. He is an inspiration to many, and his willingness to openly share his knowledge is a testament to his dedication to helping people achieve financial freedom. In her book Buffettology, Mary Buffett writes, F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote that the very rich are different from you and me. He was right, but they are different in the strangest of ways, the oddest being the code of silence that they demand of family and friends. While married to Peter, this is Warren Buffett's son, I was instructed more than once not to speak to anyone outside the family about Warren and his investment operations. Writing this book simply would have been out of the question. After her divorce from Peter, Mary Buffett broke the code of silence and went on to write a book detailing Warren Buffett's investment secrets. The book, although not authorized by Buffett himself, is well written and explains the strategies and techniques he has used to become successful. However, it does not mean that others, such as Donald Trump or the reader, need to follow Buffett's methods to be successful. In fact, it is possible to achieve better returns on investments and accumulate wealth faster, using different methods and less capital. It is essential to find the style and method that works best for you. While it is beneficial to learn from people like Warren Buffett and Donald Trump, it is also important to develop your own approach. I recall attending a church service by Reverend Vernon Ash several years ago in Atlanta that highlighted this point. He emphasized that people must work through their own processes in order to fully appreciate and achieve their goals. On the other hand, without the process, the goal loses its value. Why get rich? If you want to remain in the middle class in the United States and other Western countries, you may need to consider taking drastic measures. The middle class is shrinking at an alarming rate, pushing many people into poverty. This situation is made worse by the fact that, in America and other Western nations, the choice is becoming increasingly limited. You can either be rich or poor. Therefore, if you want to remain in the middle class, you may need to consider living in countries like China or India, which are growing their middle classes and providing more opportunities for people to become financially secure. On the other hand, if you decide to stay in America, you might as well try to get rich. This is because, although people in China and India's middle class often aren't living any better than many poor American people, you can still take advantage of the opportunities in the United States to become wealthy. Donald's view. The shrinking middle class. When discussing the decline of the middle class, Robert and I realized the visual metaphors that could be used to illustrate the situation. It's as if the middle class is the narrowest part of an hourglass, or someone with a particularly tiny waistline. When you flip an hourglass, you're faced with the same dilemma: the poor feeding the rich, or the rich feeding the poor. This visual is a reminder of the unequal power dynamics that the American colonists sought to rebel against. Are we heading back to those same old world structures? Were the colonists just a bunch of misguided idealists to begin with? Reading news stories, like those in the Wall Street Journal, can give us a glimpse into the risks people take to pursue their goals. Just yesterday, 3 climbers tragically died on their descent from Mount Everest, demonstrating the dangers of pushing too hard in pursuit of a dream. Today we have an article about the great racehorse, Barbero, and his terrible injury, and we have the tragedy in the Volvo Ocean Race, where a young Dutchman was washed overboard from a yacht. Then, the crew of another yacht had to abandon ship in an incredible storm, and they were rescued by the yacht that had lost one of its crew. These are all experienced yachtsmen, and their seamanship was not in question. And with Barbero, tens of thousands of people went to see horse racing history being made and instead saw the horse break down during the race, an unbelievable tragedy that no one is likely to forget. Fans had reason to believe they would see a Triple Crown winner, a horse winning the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes, for the first time since 1978. The Wall Street Journal writer said the grief of the crowd was equal to their initial hope and expectation. There are no guarantees, but being ready sure beats being taken by surprise. Donald Trump. Expectations can lead to both positive and negative outcomes, and it is often difficult to predict which will occur. There is a delicate balance between victory and defeat, and it can be difficult to imagine all of the ways in which our plans may be upended. Uncontrollable events like weather, injury, or overconfidence can throw a wrench into the most carefully laid plans, and it is important to remain mindful of this. Philosophy can provide insight into these unexpected events and help us to make sense of them. It is important to remember that no matter how much we plan, there is always the potential for something to go wrong, and we must remain resilient in the face of adversity. Ultimately, by remaining intact and understanding that we can't control every outcome, we can remain focused on our goals and be prepared for whatever surprises may come our way. A small leak or a large wave can both have the same devastating effect on a ship, as evidenced by the yachtsmen in the Volvo race. Imbalance and unpreparedness can lead to unexpected and uncontrollable situations, as our country has seen during its relatively short time as a superpower. Although there are no guarantees, it is always better to be prepared for the future than to be taken by surprise. An example of this is the Battle of Gallipoli during WWI, where 250,000 soldiers were killed and the combined British, Australian, New Zealand, and French operations were defeated by the Turks. This outcome was a shock to many since they did not fully understand the risks and ramifications of their actions. It is important to always be prepared, as unexpected surprises can have far-reaching consequences. China today. Globalization is an undeniable part of our current reality. When Robert discussed China and India as burgeoning economies to watch out for, I could only smile, as we had been thinking along the same lines. Many people assume it will take a long time for either country to rival the United States as the world's largest economy, but this could be a case of groupthink. Robert and I have already seen the effects of their global reach. Recently, I was speaking with a friend from Europe, and he mentioned the incredible amount of media coverage China receives there compared to the limited coverage in the United States. Clearly, it's a topic of immense interest. The media coverage in Europe may be higher due to the closer proximity of Europe to China than the United States, providing more opportunities for news stories to be reported in Europe. There are 2 facts alone about China that will indicate how that country is doing and where that country is going. 1. The first Starbucks opened in China 2 years ago. There are now more Starbucks in China than in the United States. 2. In the 1970s, Shanghai had exactly 1 skyscraper. It now has close to 800. As a builder of skyscrapers and having a Starbucks in Trump Tower, I find those 2 facts staggering. Those are just 2 examples, yet easily visualized examples that should bring something home. China is a big force. Its population is such that 1 in every 5 people on the entire planet is Chinese. China has a vibrant economy and workforce and has adapted very well to the new technology. The Chinese are industrious and disciplined. What does this mean? We can either close our eyes and be blown aside, or we can study China and position ourselves to benefit from the changes. India today. My 2 eldest children, Don Jr. and Ivanka, who work for the Trump Organization, recently traveled to India. As I was doing some research of my own, I remembered a story that happened at Trump Tower last year. A car service was picking up one of my employees from Trump Tower, and the driver, a young man from India, was curious if my employee had ever seen Mr. Donald Trump. My employee replied, "Yes, about 5 minutes ago." The driver was amazed and asked, "You saw Donald Trump 5 minutes ago in Trump Tower?" "Yes, his office is there and we work there," my employee replied. The young driver was even more impressed and asked, "You mean Donald Trump actually works?" My employee then proceeded to explain what it's like to work in the office, with long hours and post-it notes, pencils, copy machines, and all the other office staples. The driver was still in awe and then decided to tell my employee some stories about his country as he drove to the airport. He gave a history of India that was condensed to a few minutes. He also explained that there were hundreds of languages and dialects in his country, a different accent every 30 miles. But that no matter if you were in the provinces somewhere or in Punjab, there were 2 words everybody knew. It was my employee's turn to be curious, and she asked, "What are they?" The driver took his hands off the wheel to act out and say, "You're fired." With great glee, my employee had a good laugh and then kindly asked him if he knew where the airport was, and he said not to worry, he would try to find it, which, I'm happy to say, he did, and with no problem. He obviously had a very good sense of direction, as well as a sense of sharing about his country. Do we have any sense of the direction India is going? Don't know anything about India? Here are a few facts to get us going. India is the world's largest, oldest continuous civilization. In the last 10,000 years, India has never invaded any country. India is the world's largest democracy. India is one of the few countries in the world that gained independence without violence. The art of navigation was born in the river Sindh 6,000 years ago. Maybe that's where that young driver was from. Sanskrit is the mother of all the European languages. India was the richest country on earth until the 17th century, when the British invaded. Chess was invented in India. India invented the number system. Albert Einstein said, "We owe a lot to the Indians, who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made." Algebra, trigonometry, and calculus originated in India. The value of pi was first calculated by the mathematician Buddhayana, and he explained the concept of what is known as the Pythagorean theorem. He discovered it in the 6th century, which was long before European mathematicians. India is the largest English-speaking nation in the world. India is a country that is well worth exploring and understanding more about. Not only are 38% of doctors in the US of Indian descent, but 12% of all scientists are as well. This makes Indian people the wealthiest ethnic group in the US and the world. Education is highly valued in India, and many Indians are running large US and global companies. In addition, India has seen substantial economic growth in recent times, solidifying its status as a major economic player. For these reasons, India should be looked upon with respect and attention, not merely as a tourist destination or a relic of the past. India is important to our future, and as globally aware citizens, we need to spend some time learning about this fascinating and dynamic country. It definitely means the world has some very viable competition, specifically in China and India, which is good. I've always believed that competition can get rid of complacency, and fast. Mark Twain said, "Don't go around saying the world owes you a living. The world owes you nothing. It was here first." That can apply to a lot of things. Let's give that some thought. How can you use this information to your advantage? The rich will spot the opportunities, while the poor will hide their heads and pretend it isn't happening. Can you spot opportunities that may arise from these economic changes? The next video, how to make yourself rich. How to make yourself rich.